Okay. The topic this year is, I made it short and I called it Life After COVID, right? So basically we are in the pandemic. We are still in the pandemic. So let's look at the topic. Basically, we're saying the coronavirus has reshaped the world. Yes, I know you can read. Some sectors and individuals have implemented creative ICT solutions to adapt to new situations. The focus point here is that some sectors and individuals have already implemented creative ICT solutions. Okay? Some sectors and individuals have not. Hence, we open it for learners that can go and research what has already been done, and for learners that are very creative to say, okay, what can we do that has not been done yet? Okay, right, then the question, which transformations or questions in response to the crisis may be here to stay? What are the positive lessons to be learned and what creative solutions are possible? So basically, there's two ways to look at it. One, which solutions have already taken place? Or two, which solutions are possible that have not taken place yet? Okay, you are going to get your mind around this topic soon. I'm going to repeat a couple of things a couple of times. Right, let's see. Focus on. You need to discover, so your research should be to discover more about the innovative ICT solutions. Focus point, it should be ICT solutions. Okay, note, it's already ICT, already implemented solutions or ICT opportunities, not implemented yet. That arose, note, in response to the coronavirus crisis and challenges. So, what solutions are possible in response to the crisis? Are you feeling the point already? So, your school, as usual, wants you to conduct some research and look at how certain sectors are adapting by doing things differently. Some things you need to consider: ICT solutions, in response, definitely how, and sectors, right? So, what do you need to do? You need to look at a sector, right? And the PAT document actually tells you which sectors. Remember, it's not sectors that necessarily are there, but it's sectors that you have to approve, okay? So, for those kids that you want to tell which sectors, here they are. The one almost all kids are now familiar with is the education sector, right? So remember, you need to cater for both types of learners. The learner that needs more guidance. A learner that needs more guidance should get the education sector. Why? Because last year he has experienced it one way or another, okay? So either schools, universities, colleges, learning resources, let's talk Google Classroom, let's talk whatever we want to, Moodle, whatever you want to talk about. So the education sector is the first sector. Then the corporate sector. And I want to go as far as to say, don't limit the children, okay? Because if you tell all the kids to do the education sector, some kids are actually more familiar with the corporate sector. Why? Because their parents have experienced it. For example, if I had any kids, they would be very familiar with the corporate sector meetings because all my meetings are online and they are used to me driving in the car having a meeting, right? So try not to limit your learners too much. The training sector, in other words, retailers, wholesalers, online shopping, express deliveries, etc. I'm almost sure that online shopping and deliveries have boomed in this during coronavirus lockdown. So don't try and limit too much, okay? I'm going to talk about limitations now. The restaurant and catering sector, in other words, coffee shops, grab and go, pre-cooked meals, again, they have boomed during the lockdown, okay? I just need to make sure that you understand that it can't be people that come and take a pre-cooked meal and they go and eat it at home. Remember, our subject is, for those of you that don't know, computer applications, technology. So we need to make sure that we have some kind of computer related, and you'll see now, I'm going to say it again, computer related something somewhere. Okay? And no, ordering online and then coming and fetching it is also not good enough. I'm hearing your voices. Right. The travel and tourism sector, you need to look at, for example, airlines, hotels, bed and breakfast facilities, how either they have solved the COVID coronavirus crisis during lockdown using ICTs, or how they could possibly solve I don't want to say solve the crisis. The vaccine will solve the crisis, I hope. But what I'm saying is, how would they cope during the crisis? Better. Okay, more sectors. The entertainment sector, cinemas, clubs, music concerts, plays, live shows, art galleries, exhibitions, etc. I've seen online exhibitions, if I'm not mistaken. All right. Sporting sector, the gyms, the parks, sports clubs, sports matches, service sector, hairdressers, beauticians, health centers, and for a hairdresser to go to someone's house and do the hair is not an ICT solution. So be very careful when you let the kids select their topics. It has to be an ICT solution. Okay, then the religious sector, I'm sure, be careful now. We need to be very, very sensitive, but funerals, places of worship, memorial services. I know people that have sent videos, etc. But we need to be careful not to focus on the deaths, because many people have felt the deaths, or people that got ill and trauma regarding that. So we need to be very sensitive too, right? But what I'm going to say is, be careful not to limit your children. We've tried to keep it open to everybody's interest. Right? For example, someone will know more about cinemas and someone will know more about sports, right? Why? Because they've all experienced this coronavirus crisis one way or another. If they haven't, then they have experienced the educational sector. All right? So, the topic, investigate one of the sectors mentioned. So, choose a sector. Investigate their associated challenges related to not a crisis, the crisis, or a crisis that they've experienced during COVID lockdown, right? At an international, national, provincial, local, or school level. That's up to them, right? Some people will go international, some people will go school. Again, we are trying to cater for more than one type of learner in the classroom. Okay, so you find your sector and then you investigate the challenges and note how the sector affects the community. Are you filling the questionnaire? Because you can't go and research that without a questionnaire. And then in terms of the existing problems, the solutions, and the community involvement. So you're starting to feel the topic of the PAT. It's a sector, the challenges of the sector, how the community gets affected, the problems, and the solutions. That's about that. And I'm going to say it more than once. So you need to gather and analyze data. Note from this time round the questionnaire and other data. I will explain this now, just now. Okay, possibilities that could solve the challenge. Note the possibilities. It could be already existing possibilities. So basically, tell the kid to go and research what whoever did. Okay, or tell the kid to go and research what he could do to solve the problem that he has identified. And then obviously the usual, you find your audience, you present it, has to be realistic, has to be related to whatever you are researching. Okay, so let's see. You choose the sector, So you investigate the sector, you investigate the challenges, you investigate the problems, you investigate how these challenges could be overcome, and you investigate the community involvement. That's the sector. Then you have already investigated. So now you identify solutions to the problem as usual, and then you present it to your audience. Okay, are you starting to feel the PAT topic almost the same as every other year? Right. Note, statistics related to infections, recoveries, and deaths are not required. Don't come with the death toll in Gauteng. Don't come with what's the percentage of the death in my school. Please, we need to be very, very sensitive regarding the impact that the deaths and the recoveries and the infections had on our children. They were all, one way or another, they felt it. So be careful. Please tell them from the beginning, do not come with death statistics or recovery statistics. There's a lot of statistics available, but that's not what our PAT is about. Okay? Right. So focus on solutions in response to the pandemic and the positive lessons learned during lockdown. So in other words, already learned and possible lessons. Positive lessons. And the focus is ICT. So like I said, be very careful not to say, okay, I took online orders and then I drove to someone's house and went and did their nails there. That's not ICT related. Okay. Or I prepared food and people could come and fetch it from me. Be careful not to go that route. We need to stay in the ICT field. Okay, so we need to talk about this in class. What do we talk about? Remember I said we need to plan a session. Which sectors were impacted? So I just gave you some of the sectors. What challenges could the sector have faced? Talk about it. Don't tell the kid to go and research it himself. Talk about it in class because that will give him an idea of which direction he wants to follow. Which solutions could they implement? What resources are needed? And I'm already, when I say what resources are needed, I'm going to go as far as to say 99.999% of the time, data. So which resources do they need? They definitely need data. And when I think data, I'm thinking costs and I'm thinking numbers and I'm thinking analysis. For example, and then here comes costs. What are the costs involved for the solutions? If it's educational, what are the resources that they need? If it's trade industry, what resources do they need to transfer goods or whatever the online services, whatever it is, costs always necessary, if I could say. How can the community get involved? Is the community involved? Do they need to get involved? What's the problem with the community? Remember, it has to be related to the pandemic and it needs to focus on ICT. Okay? And then how would the sector be able to implement the solution? Can you see the solution and the presentation? Okay, how do you approach this topic? Have you noted that I've said this many times because we need to get our heads around the topic. So how do you approach this topic? You find a sector that was challenged because of COVID, not just any sector. You research some challenges that the sector faced, okay? Then you research solutions to the challenges that the sector faced. These solutions could be in the community, it could be outside the community, it could be the community, it could be whatever. And then you need to provide the solutions that could be implemented by the sector. That's in a nutshell. That's the topic. Find a sector, research the challenges, research the solutions, provide the solutions. Okay, so here's my problem. We couldn't have any music shows or whatever music because the lockdown, and we are still in lockdown level 3, the lockdown level 3 said no gatherings. Okay, so I couldn't go and look at my favorite band, go watch my favorite band and whatever. Please let the kids stay away from the cigarettes and the alcohol, right? So I couldn't go and watch my favorite band perform every month, right? So what was the problems that the band could experience? Not me. My problem is I couldn't watch them. So I had to sit and watch TV at home or whatever, right? So what are the challenges that the band faced, right? And obviously, when we talk about challenges, can I say money is the first thing that comes to mind, all right? So what are the challenges and what were the solutions that these people came up with? Some people actually did provide online music shows. What are the resources needed for these online music shows? Data. So how could we have solved the problem with data? Now, can you see? My problem is that there were no gatherings, so they couldn't have any shows, and the solution in a nutshell is to provide online music shows. But I can't just say this. Now I have to write a whole nice report about that. Okay, so your job in PAT guideline words, investigate the sector and its challenges. Now we read out of the PAT. Gather and analyze data relevant to the sector and the challenges, involve the community. Identify possible solutions to the challenge. Present your research and findings in a report suitable for implementation. So it's basically exactly the same as every other year. The topic just changed. Problem. I've been putting this into my presentation since forever. Research. Solution. Okay. So you need to make sure that your kids understand the problem related to COVID. When they research, it has to be ICT related, and when they present, it has to be presented to an audience that is suitable. Okay, right. So, and then before you even start the PAT, you need to make sure that you back up each and every phase.